G'day, I'm Troy from Microsoft Australia Education. I'm a learning delivery specialist, which means I get the really cool job of going to K-12 schools, vocational schools, TAFEs, higher ed institutions, and helping them switch on to the Microsoft stack and all the cool things that they can do with Microsoft. The other part of my role is I'm the accessibility lead for the Australian education team. So again, I go to those same institutions and show them how they can use technology to better support people and to better scaffold learning and help with learning engagements and assessments and that kind of thing. This is the third session in our Inclusive Classroom series brought to you by Microsoft and also the NDCO's program, which is a federally funded program putting really key people into your institutions and helping support students who need that little bit of extra support and help them to scaffold for their learning. So this session is all about the inclusive classroom and writing support, specifically using Microsoft tools. So we're going to have a look at all the different ways that you can support writing, or at least some of the different ways that you can support writing in your classroom and with your students using the Microsoft tools. So we're not talking about specialized technology. We're talking about the same technology as everybody else and, using the devices that you already have and that you already have access to. If you want to access the slides today, then you can here at aka.ms/NDCO. So that's aka.ms/NDCO. And that's the slides, which have got links and other bits and pieces in there, and you'll probably want to be able to access those. If you want to get previous videos and also other videos that I've created, then please visit my YouTube page, aka.ms/TroyYT, aka.ms/TroyYT. Now, looking at our agenda today, we're going to have a little bit of a chat quickly about personalization again and the difference between that and differentiation. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you in and I'm going to show you Dictate, which is right across Office, and it's a very cool tool, and it's really, quite a supportive tool for writing. We're going to have a look at Editor across Office. We're going to look very quickly at word prediction, and then we're going to revisit Immersive Reader because there's another version of Immersive Reader that exists that I'd like to take you in and show you and how that can support writing. And then lastly, what we'll do is we'll look at any sort of further resources. As with all my workshops, I love to stop and remember the Microsoft mission statement, and our mission is to empower every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. Now, we talked in the last two workshops, especially in the first one, where we looked at the difference between differentiation and personalisation, and I just want to stress that again because it is important and it is a framework or a foundation that we come from at Microsoft. So in education, you've probably heard this term differentiation a lot, and what it really means is the onus is on the educator to create different resources and different channels by which those resources can be used to reach the student. And so it meant that I, as a teacher, am responsible for making sure that all my lessons meet all my kids' needs. But there's this other word, personalisation, and you've probably heard that a lot as well. And whilst it looks the same as differentiation, it's actually slightly different because it puts the onus not on the teacher, but on the learner, or in tech terms, on the end user. And so the student personalises their own learning. The onus is no longer on the teacher. And so while the teacher does need to facilitate personalisation, ultimately they don't decide what this looks like. Now, I want to remind you that there's, basically two versions of Office that you can use. There's the fully installed version, and then there are the web tools as well. Okay, so our web-based tools, and you can find those at www.office.com. Come in, sign in using your school email address and password, and that will bring you into the Office 365 start page, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so here I am at my Office 365 start page. It's you can see up here I've got my profile and my settings and bits and pieces. This is where we installed the latest, greatest version of Office 365 apps onto your machine, okay, if you want the fully installed version. But over here are all our apps, okay? And this matters because it's not necessarily always the same. So the experience that you're going to have in Word in the browser is going to be somewhat different to the fully installed version. And it's really important to note, because today we're going to be looking at, both installed versions and web-based versions of things. So try and stay in touch with what version that we're in at any one time, because otherwise later you'll go back and say, hey, why isn't it working for me? It's because basically you're in the wrong version. All right, so keep that in mind. So let's start by looking at dictate. Okay, so dictation or speech to text is available across multiple platforms, and it allows students to speak into the device, and then the written text will appear on the program. It's a quick and easy way to create drafts, outline notes, or just get thoughts out onto text. So dictate is available in Word Online, but it's also available in Word for Windows, whether you're on Windows 11 or Windows 10, that fully installed app is in there as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take you in, I'm going to give you a bit of a demo of what this looks like. So I'm going to come back into my Office Start page, and what I would do is I would just click on Word for the browser. So let's note that we are in Word for the browser, but you do get a very similar experience in the fully installed version on your machine. So I'm going to open up a Word doc here using Word in the browser, as I said, and you can see that I'm here on the Home tab, okay, and Dictate lives just over here. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on, and then I'm going to quickly turn it off again. The reason why is because I want you guys to be able to see this little dialog box down here. All right, now the first thing I'm going to do is come into the dictation settings, okay, turn on the settings, and look at this. I've got, it's making sure that I'm using the right microphone. As a matter of fact, I'm not, so I'm just going to go into my other microphone there, so we should get a bit of a better sound now. And then I'm going to set my spoken language. Now, it is set here on English UK, but I'm going to take down to a preview language, which is English Australia. All right, so I'm going to click on that. Do I want to auto punctuate, or do I want to do my own punctuation? Well, in this case, I'm going to leave auto punctuation off and show you how to punctuate yourself. But if I left auto punctuation on, it will listen for my natural pauses and attempt to punctuate the sentences. But I think sometimes we're in an education setting, and especially when we're teaching about punctuation, it's important to leave that off. We've got a profanity filter as well. Okay, I'm going to leave that off today as well. So I'm going to click on that. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you over here is my help button. We'll come back to that in a minute, okay, because I want to take you through and show you what that's all about. But I'll just click it really quickly and show you everything that I need to support me in using Dictate is here. But again, I'll come back to that a little bit later. All right, now I'm just going to make this text nice and big so that you guys can see what I write as I dictate. And I'm going to hit the Dictate button, and away we go. Last Christmas holidays, I played with my puppy Brandy, full stop. I sprayed water at her, full stop. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her, full stop. We sat together. Delete sentence. Delete last sentence. We sat down together, comma. We said jokes to each other, comma. We played and played until I had to go into the house and eat lunch, full stop. New line. I said to her, comma, open quotes, you are amazing, exclamation mark, close quotes. Okay, so there it is. You saw I made a bit of a mistake and I was able to use dictation to go back and change that anyway. But I want to stress that I'm connected to the internet at the moment, all right? So the faster your connection, the more quickly or the faster the Dictate's going to be able to keep up with you. And I usually find that I look away from the screen when I'm doing it because sometimes there is a slight delay and it can sort of put me off. Now you can see here it's missed a couple of things, so I can go back and change a couple of capital letters, etc. But largely it's done a pretty good job, all right? And it's kept what I needed in there, and it's listened to my punctuation, etc. And it's quite strong. So again, what did I do? I came into Word in the browser. I clicked on that, made sure I was in the Home tab. I clicked on Dictate, did all my settings over here, as you know, and then I basically went in and started to dictate. Now, when I click on this help button, this is what I wanted to show you, some of the cool things that are in there. Now, over here is getting started, all right? So everything that you need on how to set dictate up is there, making sure that you set your language correctly, which is what you just saw me do a moment ago. That instructions, or those instructions, are in there as well. And remember, it's not just English, and it's not just English with different accents. There's quite a few languages there. We've got Chinese, we've got Spanish, German, French, and then there's a whole lot more in the preview languages. Now, the preview languages doesn't mean they're not working. It just means that they're not, you know, full featured yet. But you could see that it really did hear my Australian accent and did quite a good job with that as well. Information on how to make corrections, etc. Okay, so that's in there for you as well. And it also shows you here, like, we're going to stay within English, but it's also showing you the things that you can say. So things like punctuation. Now, a moment ago, you saw me punctuate, and it listens for that Australian or UK way of saying full stop, but it also listens for the American way, comma, question mark, exclamation point. There's a whole heap of punctuation there, even ellipses and other things as well. So that's in there, which is quite cool. Lots there. Mathematical terms as well are in there. All right, so you can see plus sign, minus sign, currency. You can even put emojis in, which is kind of cool. Now, the other thing, and you saw me do this a moment ago, is you can also use voice commands to make corrections. So deleting things, sentences, numbers of words, etc. And there's some tips there as well. Formatting the document, how to bold things, italics, underline, strike through, that's all in there as well. Creating lists and tables is in there. So information on how to do that and the correct things to say. Moving the cursor is in there as well, so you can even tell the cursor where to go in the document. Adding comments, controlling dictation, etc. And then, of course, down here, there's information on troubleshooting, like microphone issues and those kinds of things. Please remember that, using this in a classroom full of people with a lot of noise, then your microphones are going to probably pick up a lot of the ambient noise going on. So it is better to be in a quieter environment. And also, it's best to try and use a directional mic. Because that will also help cut out some of the noise that's going on around you if you are trying to use it in a room with lots of other people. So keep that in mind. Now, I just want to show you some of the cool things you can do using, like, making lists and other things as well. So I'm going to turn this back on. Hopefully it's going to work really well for me, but let's give it a bit of a go. Shopping list. Underline shopping list. New line. Delete new line. Delete last word. Start list. Eggs, new line. Bacon, new line. Fish, new line. Bread, new line. Delete 2 words. Pause dictation. Okay, we got there, and you could see that you're going to have to get to know it, and it's going to get to know you, etc. You don't have to train it. It's not like drag and dictate, but the more you use it, the better you'll get at it. And as you learn to know when to pause and how clearly to speak and those kinds of things, it actually gets easier as you go. So keep that in mind. And remembering, again, you don't need to train it, but the more that we use it together, then more of that data is actually taken in by Microsoft, and it'll get better. So you'll get better and it will get better, no doubt. Dictate, as I've just shown you, is available in Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, and OneNote for Office for Windows desktop apps, okay? And it's also available in Word, OneNote, and PowerPoint for the web. Now, as we saw in our last webinar, the Immersive Reader is a free tool that aids with independent reading and comprehension. And because it lives in so many different apps and platforms, it helps readers with many different aspects of learning. So there are features within this tool that read text out loud, break into syllables, and provide options for visual layouts such as spacing between lines, letters, or color themes. But writing can also take place when the Immersive Reader is being utilised, and it allows students to consume their text with their visual preferences as well as hear their writing read aloud to them. So now students who can't see their errors for a multiple of reasons can hear them. They can create revisions and edit with their own voice and then hear it read back to them through the entire process. All right, so just the ability to actually go back and be able to listen to their own writing. So when we combine dictate together with Immersive Reader, it becomes really, really powerful. So for example, I've just dictated this and maybe I'm unable to see my errors, okay, for whatever reason, and I need to be able to hear them. So what I can do is, just like we saw in our last session, I can click the View tab, turn on Immersive Reader, and then I'll be able to have that full Immersive Reader experience, reading back my my writing, and I'll be able to listen for my errors instead of just being able to see them. And I encourage you, if you didn't catch our last session, then please jump back and have a look at that, where I actually unpack Immersive Reader a whole lot more. So the combination of dictate with Immersive Reader means that students can write with a degree of independence not seen before. They can dictate in their own voice, then use Immersive Reader to assist them in the editing and revising process. Now, another thing that's really powerful is when we combine read aloud together with dictate in something like Outlook. So I want to show you an example, and here's the scenario. So what might happen is teachers are going to be emailing their students, and I shouldn't say what might happen because you know it happens all the time and it's one of the big modes of communication. But I might be locked out because of my inability to read and write. Okay, so I might have some sort of challenges with text. So instead, what I can do is I can open up my email, and you can see here when I've got my email open, I've got Read Aloud and Immersive Reader in here. So I can just have my email read to me.
In Office for Windows. Regards and thanks. Troy Waller, Accessibility Lead Learning Delivery Specialist.
Okay, so I can have my email read to me. But then when I want to reply to that email, okay, to my teacher, maybe I'm locked out of that because of some sort of issues, okay, with my inability to write, and I need that support. So what I can do is I can use dictate. Hello, Mrs. Smith, new line. Thank you for your email. It was very interesting. Full stop. I plan to get back to you this afternoon. Full stop. Can we make an appointment? Question mark. New line. Thanks very much. Okay, so you can see they're really easy for me to not only have my email read to me, but also dictate back. All right, so I just want to stress that that's in the Office app. Okay, dictate is not yet present in the online app. It's only in the Windows for, the Office for Windows app when you're looking at Outlook, for example. Okay, so let's keep moving with what we've got in the writing space. So when we want to support students to write, whether we're in a K-12 scenario, whether we're in a higher ed or vocational scenario, we know that fixing everything is not productive, okay? We need to scaffold, and we need to encourage students to scaffold themselves and encourage them to choose what's most important. So tackling everything can also be overwhelming, and we want tools that build independence and help students to self-assess their writing and clearly see what to work on. So what we've done at Microsoft is we've actually revamped the traditional spell check. All right, so I want you to think about this. This is the sort of more traditional spell check, and this might be even the spell check that you've got on your machine at the moment. But let's look at this through a student's lens. Let's take a look at some of the challenges students face when trying to spell check a document. So spelling check software typically shows a list of spelling suggestions when you right click or tap on a flagged word. Now, there are several different reasons why people with dyslexia, for example, have difficulty selecting a correctly spelled word from that list. Firstly, they have difficulty perceiving the difference between similarly spelled words and determining which of them are correct. Now, this can be due to visual attention challenges, challenge remembering spelling rules, or an absence of visual memory tracing the correctly spelled word. And it didn't help that Office spelling menus used to only show the suggestions themselves without any context to help choose the right word. Now, secondly, having too many choices slows decision making and causes decision fatigue. And this applies to everybody, but it's especially pertinent to young writers who have more difficulty with reading speed and accuracy and slower processing time. Now, thirdly, unique spelling error patterns can cause words to look very different from the intended word. Historically, Office spell checkers have optimized to show a smaller number of highly likely suggestions for the most common error patterns. Therefore, it didn't have suggestions for unusual error patterns such as these. So this is what we remember as spell check, and this is what some of you possibly in using older versions of Word or older versions of Office are still experiencing. So now what we've done though is we've made some changes. So let me show you what that looks like. So here I am in a document. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger for us to see. So here I am in a document, and you can see those, those usual little squiggles underneath our spelling errors there. And you and I know that the red squiggle means it's a spelling error, but we need to make sure that our students know this as well, so they know what kind of error they're actually looking at. Now, once upon a time, as we saw a moment ago, I would right click, I would get a drop down of suggestions. Now what we're doing instead though, is when I drop down, you can see I have only 3 suggestions instead of 4 or 5, and under each of them are synonyms, okay? So it's helping me to better be able to differentiate the actual word that I'm looking for. But when I come over here, you can see these little arrows over here. When I click on it, I have the ability to have those suggestions and the synonyms read aloud to me. Have a listen.
Principle, similar to, code, source, rule.
Let's listen to the next one.
Principle, similar to, main, leader, superintendent.
Okay, and I will go through and I will find the one that I'm looking for. In this case, it's this one. I click on it and on I go with my spelling correction. Now, we've chosen to show synonyms as opposed to definitions or usage samples because they are the most efficient at the level of reading. The fewest words are required to convey enough information to make a decision, and of course, less text will help students, for example, because of visual crowding, that is more text on the page, and an impaired visual search would be less of an issue. We've also improved the spelling suggestions themselves. We're leveraging an online spell check engine, which means you need to be connected to the internet, and that provides a larger language model and a phonetic spelling component that gives us better suggestions. So what I'm saying is, because we're using the power of the internet to connect to much more than stored on your local device, you're getting a better experience under the hood. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is what's called Microsoft Editor. And Microsoft Editor is basically spell check on steroids. And let me show you what that looks like. So this is the fully installed version, and you can see the editor button up here. So I click on the editor button. So again, that lives in the home tab. I click on the editor button, and we see a few things going on. The first thing it does is it's showing me an editor score. And the editor score is calculated on the number and type of suggestions that need to be changed, as well as the document length, all right? So it's giving me a percentage there of 22%. Now, there's 3 kinds of writing that I can choose that I want editor to look at, okay? So there's formal writing, professional writing, or casual writing. And in this case, I'm going to stick with formal writing because this is a piece of school-based text. And you can see that it comes in first at corrections. Now, the corrections are the things that it's saying that I must change, right? These are not suggestions. And the first group is the spelling and the second is the grammar. Now, you can see already that what it's done is it's actually started to highlight or underline these different words, okay, showing me according to what kind of error they are. We can see that the red squiggles, of course, are spelling, and then we get into the blue lines for things like grammar. Now, a moment ago, I showed you that if I right-clicked, I get the drop down, etc. Okay, and that's good for some of us, but for others of us, there's too much going on the page at that moment. All right, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to come over here to corrections, and I'm going to click on spelling. And what it does is it opens up a dialogue outside of the text. Okay, so it's moving that away for me. The other thing too is it's doing it in a categorical sense, right? So it's taking them through categorically. It's pulled the entire error out for me in context of the sentence, right? So rather than just the word, it's actually showing me the entire sentence, and I can listen to that and hear the error.
They are about 30 to 33 centimeters. Tree octopus are amphibious.
Okay, so I can hear that the error is there. Now here's my suggestions again. Okay, it's actually giving me my suggestions, and I can look at those and I can have them read aloud.
Amphibious, similar to amphibian.
All right, or I can even have it spelled out to me.
Amphibious.
All right, now people have asked me, can you slow it down? Not that I know of, but you can play it over and over and over if you need to.
Amphibious.
Okay, so for example, if I was come down here to principal, okay, again, I can hear that error. Have a listen.
I could throw it at my principal to scare her.
And here again are all my suggestions with the synonyms able to be read aloud.
Principal, similar to code, source, rule.
And even spelled out for me.
Principle.
Okay, so I can go through and change all those. Now, the cool thing is because it's categorical, it's going through and it's letting me see those together. So I can focus on all my spelling first, and then I can focus on all my grammar. All right, so I come in here for grammar, I can listen to it, it's got suggestions, etc. All right. Now, the other thing that we've got there are we've got the refinements. Now, refinements are optional advice, right? Or stylistic or situational suggestions, okay? And I can go in there and look at those. Now, for example, I've got two around conciseness. So when I click on conciseness, you can see it's this sort of dotted underline under here. And it's suggesting to me that I get rid of and also and just make it and. Again, I can listen to it. I can also listen to my suggestions, right? Go and have a look at things like formality, all right? So it's saying here that you probably shouldn't be using the contraction. Instead, you should turn it into they would. So it works as a tutor, okay? So it's helping me not only with corrections, but also with refinements. Now, I want to point something out to you down here. See this little settings button? When I click on that, and apologies if it's a bit hard to see over this video call, but it's got these categories: formality, inclusiveness, punctuation, sensitivity, vocabulary, etc., and all these sub areas as well. And being able to check those will turn them on, and uncheck them will turn them off, because you don't want to overwhelm students. So you might want to help them to turn on the things that matter and turn off the things that don't matter, and then they know what they're looking for. But again, what's happening here, as I said a moment ago, the strength is in the fact that it is categorical, and it's taking me through all my spelling first, then all my grammar, then all my conciseness, then all my formality. I'm not having to go, as a lot of us do, spelling, grammar, spelling, you know, back and forth, right? And for some kids, it means, you know, changing channels in their little brains. And we want to make sure that, you know, they're able to do that in a much better way. Now, the other thing that we see here is it's giving the student a dashboard for self-assessment, all right? So it's about helping the student be more independent, okay? Down here, we've also got a very basic online plagiarism checker, okay? So it'll basically let the student know if they've got too much cut and paste and if they need to change things back into their own words as well. So this flexible workflow choice lets you spend time, or the student spend time purposefully scrubbing the document one category at a time and fixing things in a sequence. And it also helps them better monitor their goals. Now, we've also built Editor into the browser. So let me show you what that looks like. So here I am in Word in the browser, okay? And I've got my Editor button, again, living in the Home tab. It's not quite the same, but it's very similar. But the first thing I want to point out to you is when I click on my words inside the browser, I'm not getting those synonyms, okay? And I'm not getting read aloud. So you may find that some of your students are going to best work in the fully installed version rather than in the online version, but you can go back and forwards, all right? So whilst I've got this open right now in the online version, I can at the same time be looking at exactly the same document in the fully installed version. So I can go back and forth and use either or, but just remembering some students are going to do better in the browser, some students are going to do better in the fully installed version, and that's entirely their choice. Okay, but you can see again, I've got the editor score there as well. I've got formal, professional, and casual writing to choose from. I've got my corrections and my refinements are in there too. The other thing I've got is that similarity checker. So it's already checked that for me, and look at that. I haven't actually ripped that off from anywhere. It's also got text predictions as well that can be turned on. So while I'm typing, it'll make text predictions for me. And you've also got here the insights feature, and the insights feature is kind of nice. When I click on document stats, what it does is it brings everything to me in one place, right? So it's showing me my word count, my character count, my paragraph count. It's also showing me the time it would take to read it and the time it would take to speak it. And then it also brings out this Flesch-Kincaid score, right? And it's giving me a 77, saying that it's fairly easy to read. And look what it does when I hover. It says, based on sentence length and the number of syllables per word, this is about a 7th grade reading level. All right, so we'd know that if I'm in a higher level, I'm probably going to need to up the vocab and things like that. And it's telling me that there's 21 suggestions for me to change there. So that's something that's in the online version, in the browser-based version, that's not in the fully installed version. So depending on the student, depending on the context, you have the choice to go backwards and forwards between those two if you want. So that's editor in the browser. Now, another thing I want to point out to you is inside Windows, not just Windows 10, but also Windows 11, we have word prediction, which doesn't just function in Office, it functions right across your Windows experience. And so to turn that on, it's really easy. You go into your Windows settings, then start typing the word prediction, for example, and what it'll do is it'll bring you into your keyboard settings and into your typing settings. You scroll down here to hardware keyboard and just click here, show text suggestions as I type, and that will turn that on for you. Now, we talked about Immersive Reader a moment ago, but I want to show you that there is a slightly different version of Immersive Reader, which lives inside the Office for the Windows desktop apps. And it is somewhat different, but it's actually better for writing. And I want to show you what that looks like. And I want to show you why and talk to you about why we actually have two different versions. Now, let me just turn editor off here. I'm going to come up to the View tab here inside Word. And you can see here that I've got the Immersive Reader button. But look what happens when I click on the Immersive Reader button. It is very different to our other web-based version of Immersive Reader. Okay, the first thing that we can do is we can play with the column width. We can make that narrow, we can make that wide, okay, and set it up how we want it. We have the ability to change the colors, okay, again, like we saw in the other Immersive Reader. We've also got line focus, 1, 3, and 5 line focus, all right, so we can reduce distractions even further. We've got the ability to turn the text spacing on and off. We've got the ability to syllabify, and we've also got read aloud. But what makes this different, okay, there's no translation in there, okay, and the parts of speech are not in there either. But what makes it different and what makes it better for writing is the fact that I can actually type into the document while Immersive Reader is running, okay, which I can't do in the other version, right? So I can add right here. And then I could go back and have that read aloud to me. I could still be having my syllables and all that kind of stuff working in that space, but I'm unable to do that in the other version. But when I'm making those changes will be reflected in the original document, okay? So again, I turn on View, I turn on Immersive Reader, and it's going to be more support while I write. Now, if you're thinking, hey, I like this, but I also like the other version of Immersive Reader, you can run them at the same time. So here I am in the browser version, okay? And Immersive Reader has different features, is doing different things. Again, I can't write inside this Immersive Reader, but I can still be making changes down here in this version, and then I can be coming back to my web version because it's all connected through the internet. So those changes are going to be almost immediate. So I can be using both and going backwards and forwards if I want. So things like picture dictionary and other things and translate, etc., may be better in here, but the actual doing of the writing is much better in this space. And that's why we don't bring it to parity. That's why we haven't retired this version, because people are saying it's much more supportive for them when they write. Now, the other thing is about Teams. Okay, so as you know, in the Microsoft space these days, everything is about Teams. And if you haven't heard that, then get with the program. But the cool thing about Teams is you can bring all these apps like Outlook and OneNote and PowerPoint and Word, and the Immersive Reader, Dictate and Editor features that are happening inside those tools are happening inside those tools inside Teams as well. So when we are doing our, our learning engagements and our assessments and these other things inside Teams, then we know that these features and these functions are going to be there for our students. There is a walkthrough around some of these inclusive writing tools, and you can access that through your browser at aka.ms/inclusive writing demo. That's aka.ms/inclusive writing demo. If you want to get today's slides, again, you can find them at aka.ms/ndco, and there will be a version of these slides in there for you. So if there's any links or other bits and pieces that you want to access, you can grab them in there. If you want to get my videos, please jump into my YouTube page, aka.ms/TroyYT. It's the videos in this series, as well as some specialized K-12 stuff that I've built for you as well. And then lastly, I would love you to stay connected with me on social media. I have these 3 professional accounts. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm also on Facebook. What I do for you is I find the case studies, I keep you updated with the latest features and articles and other bits and pieces, so you don't have to go looking for it. It'll just start to appear in your feed. So if you want to connect with me, I would love you to. And you'll know it's me when you search, because you'll see my picture here, which is the same avatar on these 3 platforms as well. So I hope you got a lot out of this today. I hope there was a lot that you've learned. Please understand that you can go back and watch this video again and again, as many times as you want, and be accessing what I'm showing you. But also you can find some really great help at support.office.com. That's support.office.com, and you can find articles and other bits and pieces in there as well. So I'm Troy from Microsoft. Don't forget, this is only the 3rd in a series of these workshops. So we'll see you next week for more from Microsoft and NDCO.